because we do record these and archive them, so you can watch them at a later time. So we're kind of almost there. So just to say thanks to everyone for joining us this afternoon on a cold, well, it's still light actually, which is quite nice, February, and it's getting lighter. Where are you based, Liam?
We're based down in Richmond, so it's
Mhm.
still cold down here in London,
Yeah.
but yeah, nice and light, which makes a change at this time.
Okay, great. Okay, well, hello to Denise, to Duke, to Jacqueline, to Sharon, Sheena, Shirley, and Susan. And I think probably the best thing is if you could just click onto the desktop icon, Liam, and just maybe start your presentation. That would be great. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Okay, and over to you.
Craig, well, look, oh, that's my email. Let's let's jump off that. Look, thank you for inviting us to talk today about Mindview. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is on the line today. I mean, for example, if I was to ask you to put all your hands up right now, the first thing you'd notice is that I can't see that. So equally so, I can't see if you're nodding, if you're making nice sounds of, oh, that's nice, and this, that, and the other. So I do encourage you, please don't suffer in silence. If you've got a question as we go through this, please just punch it into that questions panel, the chat panel, and Craig, I'm sure you'll relay that to me as we go through this training session
Yeah,
or
we'll do. I
introduction
forgot to say
to Mindview.
takes questions at the end of this session. Okay,
Ah,
thanks,
right.
Liam.
Okay.
Great idea.
Perfect. Perfect. Um, well, look, with the 20 minutes that we've got, of course, as much as I'd love to make you all Mindview experts by the end of it, of course, that takes a bit of time. So really my two objectives from this 20-minute introduction is to, one, I suppose, get you all very excited, enthusiastic about going out and learning more about Mindview. And secondly, I hope to remove any fear barriers that you might have when looking at new technology or new mind mapping technology for the context that you work in. To give you a bit of background, my role here at Mindview is to work with predominantly further education, higher education, and even the workplace to deliver our software as not only as an adjustment, but also as a productivity tool for businesses or just a study skills tool for uh, education. Now, of course, there's lots of other mind mapping softwares available in good old BBC fashion. Other mind mapping softwares are available. So I thought I'd just address very quickly the most common question, which is, why would, in the context of a learner looking at mind mapping software, why would you choose Mindview? And I think the best way to discuss that is to look at how we develop the software. And for academic purposes, it's kind of these three core areas. So first and foremost, we have software functionality that's aimed at learners. So that's anything from being able to not only visualize your ideas and sequence information in an organic way, but it's also being able to do citations in Mindview. So for higher ed learners, you can build sources, put in text citations, and then when you go to that magic moment of exporting into the Word document, you can choose academic styles, Harvard, MLA, APA, etc., and it even writes the bibliography for you. So actually, for that reason, Mindview is now present in about 75% of all UK universities as a site-wide license, fully inclusive learning tool to support higher ed learners with their studies. When we're looking at an adjustment, Mindview has lots of built-in assistive features, read aloud functionality, high contrast mode, low contrast mode, keyboard-only shortcuts, and last but not least, accessibility compliance. And this is actually a really important one when we're talking about making sure Mindview can be used by everyone, regardless of disability or severity of disability. We actually worked with this organization here, the Digital Accessibility Center, to achieve that. And what it means is Mindview works out of the box with all of the other assistive tools. If you've got screen readers, text to speech, speech to text, screen readers such as JAWS or Zoom Text, Mindview works with those, all of those out of the box and is truly accessible. So we're really proud of that, and it means that you should know when you're recommending Mindview or using Mindview that it's going to be able to be used by everyone. I think that's a really important point. But I don't really actually want to spend too much time looking at slides here. I want to spend the time looking at the software with the limited time that we've got. So I'm just going to give you a very quick demonstration of how we can very easily go from idea generation to filling out a bit more meat on the bones of an outline to then transferring that into documents such as Word, as PowerPoint that students might need to submit for assessment. Now, if you are seeing Mindview for the very, very first time today, that's awesome. The first thing that should really jump off the screen to you is that our software looks pretty much identical to Microsoft Office. That's not something we're going to get sued by Bill Gates for. We're actually Microsoft Gold partners, which means we can provide students with a tool that leverages all of their existing skills when it comes to using computer technology. So if a student can use Word or PowerPoint, they're going to be very familiar and very easy to use Mindview. So as you can see across the top here, we've got a ribbon toolbar with some of the functionality and then the workspace beneath. And in fact, if you haven't seen Mindview for a long time, one thing that might jump off the page again is that we've created what's called a simple interface. Mindview has loads of functionality in it, which we make no apologies for. It's great. It means you can go from secondary school, further ed, higher ed, and even into the workplace, and it's got functionality that's suitable for all of those contexts. But we did get the feedback that for perhaps new users or low confident users of software, that was quite intimidating and it put people off. So this simple interface just helps to focus the workflow of mind mapping. Going from left to right, we focus on building the mind map, adding branches, adding sub-branches. Then the next step, which is then adding content to those branches, and there's no limit to how much stuff you can put onto a single branch with Mindview. And then the last step is then converting it into all those other different document styles in Microsoft Office. And it's when you get to that stage where you'll start to recognize the productivity benefits of Mindview. And quite often organizations will start looking and investigating Mindview as a tool for reasonable adjustments and then actually realize, wow, this has so many applications for just everyone, because it just helps speed up the processes of document writing, presentation preparation, even project management and creating budgets if you really wanted to. But when it comes to building the mind map, there's loads of different ways that we can do that. So personally, I like using keyboard shortcuts. The insert key takes you away from the center and you can start typing. The enter key creates branches at the same level. So you can see here, you can just branch out those ideas, and then F4 makes the mind map kind of go big screen. So what Mindview does is that it automatically balances the ideas as well around the center. So you're never left with too much information on one side of the mind map than the other, which is very useful because it's about getting the ideas out and then looking at how to sequence those information later. So when we're talking about sequencing or hierarchy with a mind map, I'm pretty sure you all know what a mind map is. But we're reading it in two different ways. The first is the center exploding outwards. So that helps us to kind of see the relationship between information as a hierarchy. So the central idea is like the root or the theme, and then the branches explode outwards in an organic fashion, or what we call a radial fashion. And that's kind of akin to how our brains actually work and populate information away from that linear style, such as Word or even PowerPoint. With Mindview, though, there's also a sequence to this mind map. So if I turn on the numbering scheme here, can you see if I draw your attention to number 1 on the clock face, that's where the first idea lives. And then we read the mind map in a clockwise formation until we get through to this last idea here. So having that sequence there actually then helps us to think about sequence in a much more visually friendly way. So let's say, for example, this item here is going to be my first paragraph in my essay. Well, instead of having to move great big chunks of text around a Word document, we can just drag this, put it into first place, and notice how that numbering sequence, even the sub-branches, adapt for us automatically. So, like I was saying, for students who really struggle with conceptualizing the big picture or the sequence of information when restricted to document types like Word or even Google Docs, this helps to take a step back, see the big picture, and then drag and drop and help sequence that information. But the little secret behind that, I guess it's not really a secret, but it's the backbone of the software. because the innovation of Mindview really is what you've done after you've made the mind map, the ability to turn it into Word documents, PowerPoints, Gantt charts, timelines, or whatever. Well, that numbering sequence, that's what's used to help then construct those other formats. So like I gave in that first example here, this is our first chapter in the Word document. That's our first sub-chapter in the document, and so on and so forth. That could be our first slide in PowerPoint. It could be our first task in a Gantt chart. So that's how the software talks to all the other areas and presents information in that sequence. Now, let's say, for example, that you are working with a learner who doesn't know what their mind map's going to look like yet. Perhaps creating branches from the beginning isn't the best strategy because, let's face it, they've got loads of ideas but haven't got a clue what order or what sequence that's going to end up in. So this is where I was introduced to a method called brain dumping. I've also heard it called mind vomiting or thought grenade, thought shower. There's loads of disgusting things you can call it. But in literal terms, it's that process of, okay, don't worry about sequence, don't worry about spelling, whatever, just get perhaps some keywords out to begin with. So to achieve that with Mindview, just kind of double click into the space. And again, you can start with maybe the theme, double click again, and you've then got an idea. Double click, double click, double click. And can you notice how I'm just creating all these ideas that are just dumped out there? This is a really fantastic strategy if you are working one-to-one with a student who's coming for support, because if they're coming for support, they've probably exhausted all of their existing strategies and they're frustrated. They've kind of almost given up and they're really low confident. This has a really magic quality of just once you've got one idea, it kind of breeds another, which breeds another, and they're visualizing, they're seeing those ideas come to life, and all of a sudden you've got the ball rolling. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about the strategy, is that it gets you started. It kind of gets rid of that avoidance plus. Now, once we've got ideas dumped onto the screen, of course, it's a mind mapping software. You can do lots of things like change your background colors, change the colors and the shapes of the individual branches. You've got artistic license. You can do that in your own time. I'm not going to spend time looking at this now. But most importantly, you drag and drop, and you perhaps start just with clustering ideas at first, bringing those information together until ultimately, through just dragging and dropping and sequencing that information, you can go from what feels like seemingly chaotic information into something that's structured, outlined, and helps to break the problem down now into its more smaller, more bite-sized pieces. Okay, so in that respect, you can go from a blank page to having something that's not only structured in a hierarchy, but sequenced as well and help provide focus for students. You can achieve a lot in a very short period of time, which is brilliant when you don't have much time to spend one-on-one with a student, or as a student or someone in the workplace, you've got only about 10 minutes of good quality work within you before you get distracted by something else. This means you can capture all that information easily and actually be productive. So I'm going to cheat here, and in a good old BBC fashion, here's one I made earlier. And all I've done here, it's a very serious topic that I like to talk about, Marvel comic characters. I've just created a mind map that outlines 4 main characters, and on the outer branches I've got some discussion topics. I've chosen their superpowers and their history. Now you'll notice I've got images on my mind map. There's loads of different ways you can add images onto a mind map. We've got our own picture catalogue with about 2,000 royalty-free images in there. So for a higher ed learner, if that ends up on their work, that's fine. There's no copyright issues. You can also just go to the internet, and let's get another image of Spider-Man. And what I love about this process is, okay, there's an image there. Copy the image, back to my mind map, paste it on, is that it never overtakes your mind map. When you put an image into a Word document, all of a sudden text goes everywhere and you're trying to struggle to get everything back together again. We're not going to have that time wasting with Mindview. It just helps to get that information on there. But you'll also notice we've got some paper clips. If I hover over it, you'll notice I've got this little text note editor icon. But across the top, we've got text notes, images. You can even put your attachments. So if you're looking at further ed or even secondary schools, it's a great way of creating an e-portfolio or creating a study plan with all of the content in one place, easy to access it. And with the text note editor, all I've done is I've put a couple sentences on here. So really what this is, it's like the body of the text to the header of the mind map. And again, as a writing strategy, I think this really appeals to students who are, their brains are moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour and they really struggle to capture that information down before they're on to the next idea. So this is a writing strategy really appeals because you could be here writing about the superpowers of Black Widow. That suddenly gives you a spark of inspiration to put some information down about Thor's superpowers. You don't need to scroll through the pages to find the most appropriate place to put that information. You just click on superpowers and now you're into that section of Thor's superpowers. So as a mind map, not only does it help with focusing information, breaking the problem down into its smaller pieces, but it also makes it more accessible as a way of writing that you can get to where you need to write quicker and get the information out whilst it's still fresh in your mind. So long story short, we've gone from having a blank page to filling it with our ideas, to bringing sequence and hierarchy to that information, and then with that outline used it to help us capture quality content, be in the form of our own text, images, attachments, hyperlinks. You can also put voice notes on there, video files. There's really no limit to how much stuff goes on an individual branch. I like to call it like a hub of content, as well as just a mind map with information on it. But this is the most important part, and the number of students that I've spoken to before they've received Mindview who, when asked, do you like mind mapping, say, no, I don't like mind mapping. It's so high because, yes, mind mapping has helped them, but what they don't like is in the bit where you've got to go from your mind map on your piece of paper and then write that up again in Word, in PowerPoint or whatever. It's that kind of repetition of information. And especially if your working memory is, you've got a short working memory where you can only capture maybe 2 or 3 words off the page at any one time to then transfer it to the Word document. That's a stressful process. So this is the magic of Mindview, being able to turn it to all these other formats. So we're going to start with the word export, and it's in that ribbon toolbar at the top. We're going to choose the custom word export, which basically means you can choose from lots of different styles that we've got built into the software. And as you'll notice at the very top here, we've got those academic styles. I will choose APA for now. In the workplace, you can choose your organization's template. So if the marketing department have a very strict guideline on must be on this header, footer, etc., you can just put it straight into there and it's going to do all the hard work for you. But let's export this out now. Let's make it unique as well. So document number 12, save it to my computer, and now Mindview is working together with Word to take that radial plan, that visual plan, and convert it into let me just get rid of these, a formatted linear hierarchical document. So here we go. Page number 1 is our title page, Marvel Comic Characters by Pettit. A very serious research piece here, I'm sure you'd agree. Now we leave the image of the mind map in to help with the transition between the Word document, from the mind map to the Word document. Is everything in the right place? But to also demonstrate to you, how is the Word document being structured here? Well, the main branches are being converted into main chapters, and the sub-branches have been converted into sub-chapters, and so on and so forth. It's even created a table of contents for us with page numbers, and as I update my document, I can update that as well. If I scroll down into the document, whatever I've put onto my branches now forms the body of the text. Now I chose to bring everything across just to be a big show off, but of course at a click of a button you can say, right, I don't want to bring the images across, or I don't want to attach documents. But you can see here, for a student who would often believe that they can't write essays or they can't produce long form writing effectively, you go from just this problem-solving method of mind mapping, which doesn't feel like work, which is great, and then you export it to Word and you realize, oh, actually, I've achieved so much in so little time. Scroll down through the document, you can see it's just sequenced all that information for us really well. Had I added a reference, I haven't really got too much time to do it today. It doesn't take long, but I want to show you the kind of key stuff. It would have written the bibliography for us here at the bottom. But you can make any kind of change to this document, add more content, remove content, import it back into Mindview, and it will just update the mind map for you. So it's a kind of two-way integration with the Office suite. I will just very quickly export over to PowerPoint as well. not only do students use this as a method of creating, well storyboarded presentations, but I'm often hearing students use this as a way of creating cue cards for a revision, because they can build their mind map, add all their content, especially if you're looking at, I don't know, biology, and you're looking at the break, what is a heart. You can have images, words, and anyway, bad example. But you can see here the first branch, the first slide introduces us to all the main branches, and then it just takes us around that hierarchy. And of course, I've broken that kind of cardinal sin of too much text on the branches, but if you know that you're making a mind map to ultimately produce a PowerPoint presentation, you can adapt your text accordingly. But PDF this PowerPoint, and you've then got cue cards that you can access on your phone, on the bus, or in the lecture hall, whatever it might be. So really, what I'm trying to demonstrate there to you is how you can go from one mind map full of content, and then without repetition, turn it into all those different formats that you need. So regardless of whether or not you're receiving that as an adjustment or just trying to speed up your ways of working, Mindview gives everyone that kind of personal boost of productivity, which I think we all appreciate. But just to summarize before we go into quick Q&A, because I realize my 20 minutes have quickly blown by, is really that methodology. Again, going from that blank canvas, instead of that blinking cursor at you where you've got that blank page syndrome, you don't know where to begin, you're dumping your ideas, just getting them out there, dragging and dropping, connecting things together, and creating not only a hierarchy, but a sequence of information. We added all of our content onto the branches, text notes for our essay, images to help with memory recall or speed up learning concepts, and then what I call the wide eye moment. Because when you show students that Word and that PowerPoint export, their eyes get a little bit wider, and they realize actually it's going to make a huge difference to the way that they work, which I think it's an amazing experience to see that every day. But stop the clock. If you've got any questions, if there's anything else you want me to look at, I'm more than happy to do that. Of course, there's more functionality to look at Mindview, but I think that's really the core stuff I wanted you guys to take away from today's session. Oops, how are we doing there, Craig? Sorry about that, guys. I dropped off there for a second. So I can see there's a few questions here which I think I can look to address. So great, there's so many fantastic comments. That's wonderful. Doug, just to kind of cover licensing arrangements. There's many different ways. If you're an individual, you can just go to the website, matchware.com, and Mindview for an individual user is £279 plus VAT, and that's for a perpetual license. So you buy it and you own it. When we work with educational institutions, we have dramatically discounted site licenses, and that ranges anything from £949 to cover a whole secondary school, and then anywhere between kind of £1,500 and £5,000 for further education and higher education. The £5,000 per year is when you're looking at, over 15,000 students. So depending on where you fit into there, depends on the annual cost. And we also do site licenses for businesses as well, who are looking to not only provide Mindview as an adjustment and productivity tool in the workplace, but something that people can get without having to go and have an assessment, which I think is a bit of a growing trend at the moment, which is terrific. The calculation tab on the right hand side of the software is it's a bit like having a built-in spreadsheet on your mind map. So the calculation tool allows you to, because as well as the mind map having content on the branches, you can actually add data as well, and that data can be then visualized in Mindview as either a timeline. So as you can see here, I can just add dates onto the timeline and it creates a visualization. So really good for visual action plans or demonstrating deadlines or just time management in general. Now in Mindview, there's lots of data sets that already exist in there, like a start and an end date. When you get into project management, you've got costs, durations, resources, those sorts of things. And then when there's a bit of information that you want to put on there that isn't captured by what we already have, that's where you use the calculation tool. So that allows you to put custom fields. So perhaps you want to do one which is a word count. So if I'm planning out my essay, I plan, okay, I want 200 words here. I want 100 words here. Let's say 100. And can you see on the mind map, it's placing underneath the branch the label and the number. Now the advantage of the mind map then is you can roll up the values, much like a spreadsheet, to calculate and summarize the parent branches as well as then the overall mind map itself. So people use this as a way of creating budgets because you can think about all those individual components, and then it rolls up to calculate that main branch at the top. And of course, if I was to update the number here, it updates that number in the middle. So a crash course, shall I say, in in the calculation tool. It can be used for lots of other things as well, but that's a little bit of an insight. Yeah, if you'd like to try the software, there's the link to the free trial, which I know you guys have shared. That's for accessing the PC version, I believe. If you do work off a Mac, Mindview is available both on PC and Mac. Doug can use it with text-to-speech, speech-to-text input. Yes, you can. In fact, we've got specific development within Mindview whereby you can, with Dragon, not only do your dictation into the tool, but you can use voice commands to actually access the tool as well. So we've got lots of built-in voice commands into the tool: add branch, add text, export to Word. So you can actually use Mindview with just the use of your voice. You don't need to use a computer or a mouse, a keyboard or a mouse if you don't wish to. That was one of the accessibility enhancements that was required as a result of our compliancy with the Digital Accessibility Center. We also offer every month anywhere between 6 and 9 webinar training sessions. They're completely free of charge. They last an hour and a half, and in those training sessions, it's not just a demonstration of the tool. You actually load up Mindview on your computer at the same time, and together we build a mind map, we add the content, we do the exports, and there's also more advanced training sessions as well, where we look at how to use the Gantt chart together and other bits of functionality. So They are completely free. You are more than welcome to attend those. If that's something you're interested in attending, um, I would need to add you onto the mailing list. So I'd need to get your email address for that. So perhaps Craig, if that's something you want to coordinate, if people have shown an interest, you can let me know and I can add them onto those invitations. Out of curiosity, those of you who are on the line, are you all coming from an academic background? So your hat is thinking about your college, your university, or is there some workplace in there as well? Further ed. I think the applications for further ed are just fantastic because you have that Gantt chart built into Mindview where students in the construction, the engineering departments, they would absolutely bite your hands off for Mindview, and that's well outside of the assistive angle. Supporting students in HE, cool. FE, HE. Ah, thanks, Craig. That's my email address.
Yeah, I think maybe my mic has gone off. I'm not sure.
Ah, you're
I'm
back.
back. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was.
You're gone again.
Okay, thanks everyone for. Thank you, Liam, for such an excellent tutorial. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah, wonderful. My pleasure.
Okay, and thanks to everyone for attending as well. Okay, so a couple of technical glitches on my side, but thanks everyone. Okay, so as I mentioned, it will be a web.
I think we lost you again. But Craig, I think you're about to mention how these videos are available in your archive along with all the other webinars that you've hosted, so you can watch it again, share them. I'm here all week. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Uh,
Bye.
bye. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye. Mhm.